So does that justify everything that you do?
Excuse me, let me tell you something. What do you think they were doing it for? Because they were trying to save us from poverty? No, they did it because they needed us. It's honor and family and loyalty. And some of us wanted a piece of the action. Now, we weren't educated like the Americans, but we had the balls to take what we wanted.
Welcome back to XFL Talk, the XFL Talk show brought to you by Driving to the Top Productions. I am Brogdon Evan, a.k.a. Evan Brogdon, also known as Talking Sports by the Lake podcast host. We are here to talk about the final game, the championship game of the XFL season, along with some other things that will transition to the NFL and the USFL. I have a very familiar guest, someone that has kind of become a junior celebrity as far as it goes when it comes to podcast talk shows. My good friend, Jamie Malloy. How we doing, bud?
Yo, what's up, Evan? And thanks for giving me the title status of junior celebrity of podcast. I really I appreciate that. I tried to do my best to talk about anything on here that'll help grow my brand and will grow this this channel. I mean, speaking of celebrities, did you hear about Pat McAfee getting his show from independent status to ESPN? Yeah, that's a guy who's paid his dues and has an opportunity to go big on ESPN. And we should really thank him for giving platforms like us an opportunity to grow too. And obviously, we're not at that level yet, but we're just testing this out and seeing where we're at. So thank you, Pat McAfee, for inspiring us to do something like this.
Absolutely, Pat. Want to give you a big shout out. Big fan of yours. Definitely a big fan of the man, the bird, the Hawk, AJ Hawk. One of the greatest middle linebackers to ever play college football in my lifetime. But with that being said, I'm going to actually let you do your thing here when we talk about the championship game. So I'm going to hand it off to you.
Thank you very much, Evan. And guess what, everybody? We finally made it to this point. May 13th, this past Saturday. This was the XFL championship game, the creme de la creme. We finally made it here after a suspension in 2020 due to COVID. This was the biggest game of the year. The underdog Arlington Renegades, who were 5-6, coached by big game Bobby Stoops, against the 10-1 DC Defenders, led by Coach not Bob Stoops, Reggie Barlow. Thank you very much. Sorry, Reggie Barlow was on the tip of my tongue. Big game Reggie Barlow. His DC Defenders were playing great all year. Something had to give in the championship. Could big game Bobby Stoops lead the Arlington Renegades to a shock the world with their title with a losing record, or would the DC Defenders roll with Reggie Barlow as the XFL Coach of the Year? Here we go. So we start in the first quarter, folks. Arlington, Louis Perez starts out with a 41-yard touchdown pass to Sal Canela as Arlington leads 6-0, but the two-point conversion would fail. On their next drive, Perez gets a 9-yard touchdown to Tyler Vaughns, and the two-point conversion is good. Arlington leads 14-0 after the first quarter. Now we go to the second quarter, and Taylor Russolino kicks that 29-yard field goal, and it's good. Arlington leads 17-0. But here comes DC as Abram Smith, the best running back in the XFL. I call him the Zeke of the XFL. He runs it in for 24 yards, and the two-point conversion is no good. But DC still trails 17-6. And then Russolino again hits a 20-yard field goal as time expires at halftime. The Renegades are shocking the world right now. They lead 20-6 at the half. Then in the third quarter, Abraham Smith gets a 52-yard touchdown run all the way to the hizzo, and the lead is cut to 20-12. The two-point conversion is missed. Then Arlington leads the drive with Kelly Bryant out to play quarterback. Lenny Brown gets a 7-yard score. The one-point conversion is no good. Arlington leads 26-12, back up by 14. But then Josh Hammond gets a 12-yard TD score from Jordan Tamawu, and the two-point conversion is good. We only have a 6-point game. Arlington leads 26-20. But here comes Arlington again. We have a 15-yard touchdown reception to Brown from Perez. The one-point conversion, no good. Arlington leads 32-20. And now we go to the fourth quarter. As you can see, all fours are up with my hands right here. Russolino hits a 33-yard field goal. He was 3 for 3 on field goals, folks. But sorry, Russolino, you didn't break a spring football record like Louis Perez did on Sunday when he beat New Jersey. He was 8 of 8 that day. Anyway, but the field goal was still big as it gave Arlington a 15-point cushion. Then Arlington or DC would respond as Josh Hammond would catch a TD reception from Tom Au again, but the one-point conversion failed. But time would run out, and on this historic season, the Arlington Renegades are your 2023 XFL champions. They did it. The team that looked like they were going to be in the dead at 4-6 shocks the world with 2 upsets in the playoff round match. First, they do it against Wade Phillips against the Renegades in the Southern Division Championship. Then they do it against the hottest team in the XFL, the DC Defenders. They win it 35-26. They are your XFL champions, which leads to my point. Big game Bobby Stoops. Maybe he gets high. Maybe is he the first XFL coach hired in the XFL? And if so, do the Dallas Cowboys take a look at him? We may see, folks. Mike McCarthy might not make it this year. We'll see.
So great review of the game. I'm going to go back and start asking some questions as far as this game went. So with this game being played, I felt like I predicted it. I can't really remember exactly what my outcome was going to be. I know I had DC and the Arlington Renegades making the championship game. I thought it was going to be a closer game days before. But I ended up watching a podcast called The Pivot with Channing Crowder, former Florida Gator, Ryan Clark, LSU Tiger, and Fred Taylor, the almighty Fred Taylor, who was also a Florida Gator, drafted 9th or 10th, was it, by the Jacksonville Jaguars in 93, I want to say. But nonetheless, they did a podcast where they ended up interviewing players and majority of the coaches of the XFL. And upon watching that and seeing the Defenders head coach, I kind of got a feeling like they weren't ready for this game. I think that this game was the game that finally caught up to them. I kind of felt like the vibe that I was getting from him and some of the players was not an anxious moment, but more of a anxious to get it over with moment. Like not to be excited about the game, but to just kind of want to get this moment over. And I felt like when I was listening to the Arlington side, they were grateful to be there, but they also felt like they felt like they had a chip that they were willing to work on. In other words, they were the next kid up to lift weights in PE class, and they were like, I'm going to get this done. I'm going to do this. I've been putting in the work. And that leads to the question that I have for you. Were you truly surprised by the outcome of this game? And what are your thoughts on Luis Perez?
Well, I was at first, but then I realized Arlington came out of the gate strong. I mean, they really took it to that DC defense, and the same way it was for Renegade for when the DC was on offense. And Greg McElroy said it too during the game. Arlington really stopped the run, and when he said their defense was built to shut down the running game, other than Abram Smith's 2 touchdown passes, they really bottled them up after that. And Louis Perez had a monster game. And if you saw his halftime locker room speech, he basically said, guys, I don't care what the bleep the score is and everything. We got to come out like we don't let up. He said, don't freaking let up. And he said, they're going to come out and try to do whatever. They're going to come and call us names. They're going to come and attack us, and they're going to come and try to attack our defense or whatever. Don't Evan let up. And when they did score on that first drive, I wanted to see how they were going to react. And you could tell their body language was positive, everything. And every time they tried to score, they came back and punched them right back in the mouth. And DC scored, punched them right back in the mouth. And they had a counter reaction every time they tried to come back, and they put the game away with the field goal and the score at the end, and ran the clock out, and they had that big interception at the end, and won the game, and they just dominating them from start to finish.
I absolutely agree. I felt like with the Renegades starting early with that touchdown pass to Canella from Luis Perez for 41 yards, and then turn around and come back with a Tyler Vaughn touchdown from Luis Perez as well. I just kind of felt like this was a moment for Luis Perez in the sense that when he was in the USFL, he came and delivered. When he was in the AAF, he came and delivered. But it kind of felt like he wasn't in the right situation or not necessarily the right situation. It was more like he wasn't all the way there yet. And then when I finally started to look at his story and really kind of dive in and figure out what was going on, to learn that he'd taught himself how to play quarterback from YouTube videos and learned on the fly as a Division II guy. To see him come out on top and win this game after being traded from the Vipers, if I'm correct, that was just wasn't having a successful season, and to turn around and come to a team that, just kind of felt like it was just a change of scenery, but this was a team that we never really would have thought that was going to come out of this division, especially having to play Houston in the pre-championship game. I'm really happy for Louise, but this brings up the next question that I have for you. As far as quarterbacks go, if you could pick 3 quarterbacks to go make a practice squad or a backup role from the XFL into the NFL, who would those 3 quarterbacks be?
I got Perez as one. I think Tamau for the defenders. And my third one, I'm actually going to say either Brandon Silvers or maybe Jack Cohen from San Antonio, possibly.
So you have those guys over Ben DiNucci? Last 2?
Ben DiNucci, I think is actually going to either be the backup in Denver or maybe compete for the starting job with Russell Wilson. That's what I think.
So that's right. We're going to allude to that earlier. I've totally forgot about that. But I agree with those. I don't have AJ McCarron on my list as well because I think he really wants to come back. I think he likes the idea of still being able to do something that he loves without having to do all the demanding things that the NFL requires, and it allows him to still be the loving father that he desires to be, the loving husband that he desires to be. And I think that this league will allow him to grow and to achieve those things. So I think he'll be one of those staple quarterbacks for the XFL.
Right, and maybe in year 2 or 3 he gets a championship with the Battlehawks. We'll see.
Right. There. Absolutely right. So with that being said, for me, I think the running back, I think something that we both agree on, the running back of the year is Abram Smith. if you were an NFL team or an NFL owner, do you think he has the talent? And now that and once you answer that, also, do you think that he will be able to make a roster and where?
Yeah, I think he'll definitely be a backup on maybe a middle of the road to a contending team. Or he'll be a starter on a rebuilding team.
I agree. So, what if you can name two places for Abram Smith that you think he could work? Where would they be?
I think he could be a backup on maybe Kansas City or the Eagles, and I think he could be a starter on maybe like the Rams or somebody like, I don't know, it's hard to say, the Rams or somebody like
I would say Minnesota.
Minnesota. Yeah, Minnesota or the Rams.
I also have another team, and I wanted to know your thoughts on this. What about the Baltimore Ravens?
Yeah, that'd be interesting. He'd be taking a lot of option pitches from Lamar Jackson, RPO and stuff.
Or even well, I think it would work for him in Baltimore because they do a running back by committee system. I know that they've gotten a new offensive coordinator and they're going to be making some changes, but I definitely do think when things stall out or they're having trouble, they can still rely on the run game to carry them through some tough games. And I could see him since he's already had an active summer, being in a rotation where he's not asked to be the bell cow, but he can definitely deliver for a team like that. And then the second team that I actually saw being a fit for him was the Buffalo Bills. Knowing that that was something last year as far as Buffalo goes, where they were looking for a running back. I think they were in trade talks for CMC. I heard rumors that it was between the Eagles, the Cleveland Browns, Buffalo, and the Jets for DeAndre Swift. So with all that being said, do you think it's a possibility that Abram Smith could come be a fit in that high-powered Buffalo offense?
I think he could, but I'm pretty happy with what we got now. But I think he'd be a nice addition to the lineup. I just think what we got now is pretty solid. But hey, if we need to get a guy like that who dominated spring ball, and he could be a nice addition.
I agree. So, with all of that being said, talking about the standout players on both teams who we really think could get there, we had talked about doing a transition to see the players that have signed and had a helpful trajectory into the opportunities of making a team. I know last year, if you want to talk about last year's star for the XFL was PJ Walker, but now we're looking at a new season, a new champion, and we have some new players. So I'm going to go off the list here a little bit, and I want you to pick two players that stand out to you in their opportunity. So first here on May 16th, we have Hakeem Butler from the Seattle Battlehawks. I'm a fan of him. Iowa State standout is signing with the Pittsburgh Steelers. We have Charleston Rambo from the Orlando Guardians earning an opportunity for training camp and preseason with the Philadelphia Eagles. We have Jarrett Jones-Smith, another Battlehawk, going to the Washington Commanders, and Gary Jennings from the St. Louis Battlehawks, at wide receiver. With those names, this list, there's one more for as far as the 16th goes, and that's Jordan Thomas, tight end, Orlando Guardians. He was originally a 6th-round pick with the Houston Texans, for anybody who felt like that was a name that sounded familiar. So with those guys that I've just listed, was there anybody that you felt, any two players that you felt could really make an NFL roster?
Definitely Akeem Butler. I think somebody that's 6'6", 230 pounds and is a big wide receiver in a tight end's body like that is definitely going to help a receiver core that already has George Pickens, but they need a big body like that to help. That'll really help Kenny Pickett help him. He'll have a nice big target for him immediately coming from the XFL, who's already running receiver routes with NFL routes when he had McCarron with the Battlehawks. So coming from an offense like that and the Battlehawks with McCarron going over to Pittsburgh with having Pickett in his second year, that should be a relatively easy transition. So I really like him making the Steelers there with Pickett. And that'll be a nice combination. And I like Gary Jennings and Jordan Thomas going to Carolina because I think that'll help Bryce Young in his rookie year development. He'll have two really, really strong pro-ready receivers coming out of the XFL for him to throw to in his rookie year. And then I'll add one more. I know you said two, but I also like, as you mentioned, I also like the other one you just mentioned, Charleston Rambo coming out of Orlando. I think he's another guy that you can add to Philly's team. He's fast, and he's another good target for Jalen Hurts to throw to, especially in that RPO scheme.
Absolutely. Charleston Rambo having 35 catches for 430 and 3 touchdowns in a shortened season. Had some struggles early on as they were trying to find the right lineup out there in Orlando. But it's really good to see him get an opportunity because when they finally started to figure things out and looked like a competitive team, he was one of those guys that started to make plays for that offense. With that being said, we had already alluded to another guy that I had on the list. Somebody here that I really wanted to talk about, and I know that you're a fan of, is Ben DiNucci. So for some fans who are just trying to figure out some things about the XFL, Ben DiNucci was a backup quarterback who, as a 7th-round pick for the Dallas Cowboys, he played 3 games, starting 1 for the Dallas Cowboys before being waived in 2022. He was selected by the Sea Dragons in the opening phase of their fantasy draft of this previous season. DiNucci led the Sea Dragons to a 7-3 record for 2,671 yards, with 20 touchdowns and 13 interceptions and 3 rushing touchdowns. Ben DiNucci really has NFL talent. He's a risk taker. He's a Brett Favre. He's a Baker Mayfield type where he's a gunslinger. He's looking to make a play. What were your thoughts on Ben DiNucci being picked up by the Denver Broncos after his season in Seattle?
I think it makes sense. He's going to a Denver team that's now led by Sean Payton, and he's going there and he made the roster, and he's going there where Russell Wilson, even though he could rebound this year, struggled last year, only led the team to a 5-12 record, and he's only going there in a 1-year, $900,000 contract. And right now, he may only be the backup, but I think he's actually going there to compete for the starting job. Obviously, Sean Payton is probably going to watch his Sea Dragon film in the XFL, saying, "Man, this kid's got a lot of really good game film, and he's a risk taker, and he's a playmaker, though. And even though if he cuts down on his turnovers, he could be a really effective quarterback for our team. So I think in training camp, he's going to let DiNucci or Russell Wilson compete for the job, and if he beats him out, he's going to let DiNucci be his guy week 1. And if he doesn't, there's still room at the table for him to eventually take over as the starter if Russell Wilson struggles again. So that's a great place for DiNucci to be. And coming right out in the NFL is playing for the Broncos and learning behind Russell Wilson and having Sean Payton being his coach.
Absolutely. And I love that you brought up Sean Payton because it immediately made me think of all the project guys that he had behind Drew Brees while in New Orleans. I really think that Ben DiNucci, although he is not the Taysom Hill project, will be used in certain sets and will find his way on the field next year if he makes this team. I also think that if he does make this team and he's able to parlay maybe a 1-2 year contract, hopefully a 2 or 3 year contract, I think when it's all said and done, he might actually earn a chance to be the starter sooner than later. I wanted to talk about one more specific player that was a surprise to me, and that was Luke Barku of the San Antonio Brahmas. And I felt like after watching his first 2-3 games with the Brahmas, I felt like this was a guy that could make it in the NFL, and I'm absolutely not surprised for him to be on the under the coaching staff of the Pittsburgh Steelers after having a defensive coordinator of Joey Porter Sr. and a head coach of Hines Ward. He initially signed as an undrafted free agent with the Jacksonville Jaguars in 2020 before being waived in 2021. He made it onto a couple practice squads, being Arizona, Kansas City, and the Jets. But with the Brahmas, he had 1 interception and 31 tackles as a boundary corner. But he really shut down his side of the field. And I remember when they played the Sea Dragons early on, I think that was, week 3? A lot of times they would bring up the matchup of him and Josh Gordon. And by the second half, Josh Gordon wasn't in the flow of the offense. And they started moving him around to the point so that he could be protected from having to be covered by Barku to get Josh Gordon into the flow of the game. So I definitely think that Luke Barku will have a chance. He's a physical corner, big corner, linky corner that kind of fits that Pittsburgh mindset. So I'm looking forward to see what he does in the preseason.
And just a quick reminder, Evan, it says he signed with the Cleveland Browns, not Pittsburgh.
Oh, really? I'm looking at ESPN, their newest article, and it says that he signed with Pittsburgh. But if he's coming to the Browns, I'm way more excited about the pickup because he fits the AJ Green, the cornerback, not the wide receiver, play style. He fits the Martin Emerson play style. He's definitely a boundary corner with some length. I think there's a great opportunity for him to make special teams and do some things on this team. But yeah, I'll definitely dive into that and look into that a little bit more. So was there anything else that you had or any other players?
But other than that, it sounds like he's a physical corner that can play on basically in the NFC North, whether if it's with Cleveland or Pittsburgh. He's got that dog in him. And like you said, a corner that plays for Joey Porter Jr. or Hines Ward is an NFL-ready corner because even though they're coaching in the XFL, they're coaching guys to get ready for the NFL. And those were 2 former NFL players who always had that dog mentality when they played. You know they're going to have a dog mentality when they coach. Doesn't matter what league.
Absolutely. And for me, if I was a defensive guy or like touted to be like one of the number 1 receivers in the XFL this past year or even this upcoming year, the San Antonio Brahmas are a team that I would like to go to just because of Hines Ward and Joey Porter Sr., just because we know the relationship that they have with Mike Tomlin and the front office for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I feel like that's a great little plug to have. I mean, all these organizations and teams have some kind of track line and some kind of resources to get these guys the opportunity to be seen. But
it's San Antonio. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was burping. Go ahead.
And you know how the NFL always has a worst to first type of team? San Antonio, this is a team I would look out for next year as a potential worst to first team candidate in the XFL. They're a team that, if it wasn't for the injuries, they would have been better than 3-7. But if they fully stay healthy next year, look out. They could be a contender next year.
For the next season of the XFL.
In the XFL in year 2 under Porter and Ward.
I definitely agree with that. I was trying to figure out my answer for that question as far as the Guardians and the Vipers, but the more I think about it, I don't think they'll be worse the first, but I do think they'll be in contention next year, and that's the Orlando Guardians. I think the Vipers have more things to fix than the Guardians do. I think that the camaraderie that's there, I think they have a few with the camaraderie that's there and the new holes that they have to replace because they have guys in the that went from XFL to NFL. I think that those players there can be replaced with the new guys coming in, some of the new undrafted free agents, which I've realized is an advantage for the USFL for a guy to go completely undrafted, doesn't get any training camp invites. Go ahead and jump right into the USFL for 5 weeks and see if you can put something on tape right before the preseason is halfway over to join a roster. But I would have to go with the Orlando Guardians as far as that one. But before we go ahead and get up out of here, because our other co-host is at a concert tonight. I hope he trips over his wallet as he's walking next to his date. But other than that, was there anything else you wanted to add before we get out of here?
No, but
sorry about that. We're having a technical difficulty there, but go ahead, Jamie.
There is one more thing I want to add. But this is for everybody who's been following our first. This wraps up our first podcast edition of the 2023 XFL season, and this has been a great season, guys. And for those who've been tuning in all year, thank you, and please stay tuned for next year as well when we do a podcast for season 2 of the XFL, and always please stay tuned for the rest of the USFL for 2023 when we continue to do that. And also you can catch me and follow me at my Twitter account, Jamie Malloy at DJ Dog Tags, and please continue to follow me there as I have followers, or as I keep increasing followers every single day. So make sure to keep following me there, Jamie Malloy at DJ Dog Tags. And also please check out my written articles on my football website at DefiantTakesFootball.com, where I exclusively write football content for Syracuse Orange, college football, NFL, and I also write exclusive content for both XFL and USFL. So again, please follow me on Twitter, Jamie Malloy at DJ Dog Tags. I'm increasing my followers. And also please go to DefiantTakesFootball.com. Please and thank you. And we will see you next year for XFL 2024. And please continue to go to DefiantTakes.com, StreamYard for XFL football. And we'll also be finding out ways to do other sports to continue to grow this channel. So please and thank you.
So I'm definitely wanted to give a big thank you to all of the viewers, whether it be Twitter, Twitch, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and here on YouTube. Definitely wanted to give a shout out to all the fans, to all the guests. There are so many of you guys that we couldn't just all thank you for one time, but I must admit that we're going to be doing some things when we hear some news. If there's some major news about the XFL, we'll definitely jump on. It may be a shorter episode, but we'll jump on to give you those updates. You can definitely reach me at XFL Football 2023 on Twitter to talk XFL. You can find me talking USFL at Talking Sports by the Lake podcast on Twitter and here on YouTube, brought to you by Driving to the Top Productions. I'm going to let a little cat out the bag here. Jamie will be hosting his very first Bills podcast with another member from the Driving to the Top Productions, and a little later on, by the end of USFL season, we will have all the updates. But I just wanted to give flowers to Jamie here now for congratulations on being picked up for your very first show. I remember my first time being picked up for a show, and now we're here at this very moment, and it kind of started the same for. So I wanted to give you flowers for that. All of the fans who love Jamie's takes, as we call him, young Chris Berman over here, the AKA the young celebrity. We're gonna try and get you guys to go over there and follow him, as well as he does a great job covering his hometown team, the Buffalo Bills. So, Jamie, I want to say thank you for replying to my DM to try to get you on as a guest. Here, I never would have thought that it would have ended in a situation where we're hosting two shows together, and now you're picking up your very own show in this podcast production. I'm very proud of you. I'm very happy for you. I can't wait. I can't wait for you to see everything else that you accomplish here. You can find me at Brogdon Evan or at Talking Sports by the Lake. Here for XFL recap. We're season. Catch us next week on Wednesday for USFL football.
That's right, guys. You can catch us there at Driving to the Top Productions / StreamYard, and I'm very honored that I'm going to be picking up my first show doing the Buffalo Bills with it's Joe again, right? Evan? Yeah. So I'll be doing that with him in September. But until then, thank you guys for watching this show. You've been very good listeners. You've been a great audience. So we appreciate that very much. Thank you guys, and have a good night.
Peace.